Hello, everyone, and welcome to Simply Technical. Keaton and I back again with another podcast, of course. If you're listening, you knew it was our podcast. This is, like I said, Simply Technical. It feels like it's been 2 weeks since we recorded, but it's really been a week and 5 days. And so
basically 2 weeks.
Basically 2 weeks. We're going to get a little political here and kind of just discuss who is kind of running for president right now, who's been confirmed, maybe who's been rumored, and then maybe go over some of their policies and stuff and what we think and some predictions. So on the Democratic side, has Joe Biden confirmed that he's been running?
Yeah,
He's going to run. Okay,
definitely.
So he's declared Mary Ann Williamson,
I think.
Williamson, the one that said she was going to beat Trump with love. Kind of memed a little bit, at least by me. It's kind of funny to me. How are you going to beat Trump? With love.
It didn't work out so well.
Yeah, when you poll at 1%, that's kind of stuff that happens. And then the big person that's everybody's been talking about, at least on social media, has been RFK, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yep.
And he's kind of on the wild side a little bit for a Democratic candidate, I guess.
Yeah, he's a complete wild card when it comes to. I mean, he has he definitely aligns more with the Democratic side, but he also shares a lot of the more extreme conspiracy side of some of the right-wing people.
Yeah, I think I saw he was labeled anti-vax. I don't know if that's the right term, maybe or pro-choice when it comes to vaccinations. I don't know about anti. You might know a little bit better, but
yeah, he is essentially. I guess it depends on what you define as anti-vaccine. He says he's not anti-vax and says that, and if you listen to this Rogan episode, he'll go through like hours on, or at least an hour and a half on why he's not anti-vax, but also then talks about why he's basically anti-vaccine. So it's a weird thing. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to be characterized as that, but I don't see how he's pro-vaccine. He says he's been vaccinated, so I guess that's pro. But a lot of the stuff he proposes on vaccines or talks about when he talks about vaccines are just simply not true. But that's why that whole debate thing was going to happen and it didn't happen because the scientist, I guess, got scared away by all the other people.
Too much attention.
And, I guess the truth is scientists just can't really talk and debate very well. That's just the name of the game. And then on top of that, he doesn't really look the part as RFK Jr. does. RFK Jr. does look good, but looking good doesn't mean what's best necessarily.
Yeah, you could be a professional bodybuilder, but doesn't mean best way to lose weight and gain muscle. I mean, you might know an unhealthy way.
His big thing, I guess we could probably talk about that later because at first let's just go over the basics on kind of what they.
Well, one thing I do appreciate about him is, one, he's willing to debate other people. I think that's important because even if they don't debate you, it shows, hey, I'm competent enough to talk about this for a long time, and I'm smart. So, I guess you don't have to be smart to debate. Idiots debate all the time. Just look in the Senate. And I think it's just, those aren't gunshots, those are fireworks, FYI. This is almost July 1st. So if you heard that. Anyways, so I think it's important that he's going on Joe Rogan. Obviously, it's a huge outreach for him. I mean, I don't know, a lot of people, he has a recognizable name. Hey, this recognizable name is on Joe Rogan. So I think that's super important. I don't think you'll really see any other candidates do that. I guess on the Republican side, Trump went on is it called the Full Send podcast, I think? He went on a podcast and YouTube actually removed it. And then I think they reinstated it later.
Really?
And then maybe red flagged it or something. But yeah, he was on a podcast, Full Send. It's not as it's not as big, obviously, as Joe Rogan. And then the other is, it might not have been as technical. Joe Rogan, I think, does a very good job of asking questions and debating and looking things up. I don't think that's true. Jamie, let's look it up.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
these guys do that. I think they just kind of take it at
They
face
just agree with
value.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Rogan has the really. Let's see that.
Yeah. So I think he does a good job of that. So I applaud RFK for going on Joe Rogan. Obviously, it helps him out tremendously in the fact that he gets a lot more reach, especially with younger people and men that you need to reach out to and engage with. Because if a man doesn't know your name or hasn't heard of you before, probably not going to vote for you.
Yeah, yeah. But it also gives him that nice juxtaposition with Biden, who is probably not going to be debating as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, probably not at all. Not even on a regular debate stage, like
Yeah.
with the town halls and stuff with CNN. And I doubt they do that kind of stuff, or Joe Biden does that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But his policies, we kind of already know a little bit. So recently, it was either yesterday or today, the college tuition pay, or what is it, student loan forgiveness?
Yeah,
that like got shot down, and I'm pretty sure he knew, or his team knew, that wasn't going to happen. And I think it was released right before midterms. So like, hey, I need my Democratic friends or my Democratic senators in House to vote for this. Please vote for them. And then knowing it's not going to like pass the Supreme Court, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, it was just a ruse the whole time. It was obvious.
Yeah. But as far as his other policies, I mean, we kind of already know where he's at. I don't know if you want to discuss any of his stuff.
We're talking about RFK still?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like everyone kind of knows where he's at because he's been president for the last few years. It's kind of, I mean, there hasn't been a ton of change or very interesting things. I guess the biggest difference to me that immediately sticks out between the candidates is their stances on the Ukraine war. While Biden is obviously very pro being involved, I think all of the other candidates, maybe at least RFK, Trump, DeSantis, have all come out against it, and Vivek also. So I guess that's the one big thing that sticks out in my head that's very different from the others.
Yeah. And not to get conspiracy theorist, but there's conspiracy side and not conspiracy side. The conspiracy side is, oh, well, he's in the pockets with Ukraine. So like they're backdooring money to him, or to his team. And then the other side is, well, we're trying to fight a war that we don't want American soldiers in. So like there's a little bit of two side to that, I guess. But I would be on the more side of let's not be involved that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've become increasingly let's not be involved as much. But I do think that Joe Biden, like, there's all the rumors of corruption and probable corruption, but also I don't really think that's why that we're in an entire Ukraine situation. I think that they simply have analyzed and decided they want to weaken Russia as much as they can. It's probably not working super well, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and this could have been in the works for quite a while, actually. Ukraine being a non-NATO nation, kind of interesting. I remember I don't want to say buddies, some acquaintances from college that dropped out. They joined up the military, I think it was National Guard, and they actually got sent to Ukraine for training to train Ukrainian soldiers. And the topic of it was anti-riot control. So that was back in like
2016, 2017,
probably 2015, maybe 2016.
Wow.
I don't remember. It's an Oklahoma National Guard, so like I'm sure it's very easily to find, at least for us. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like it could have been in the works for a while. Hey, we need to go to Ukraine and train these guys. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, 7 years later, let's have them fight a war for us. But like I said, it's kind of interesting. They're non-NATO, and that was going on.
Yeah, that is weird.
And then I don't know. Do you know much about Marianne Williamson?
No, not really.
That's the love.
I mean, I think a lot of the things when it comes to politics, a lot of times you're just picking the personality because they almost all, when it comes to primaries, I mean, not politics, but when it comes to primaries, they almost all have the same views or very similar views usually, and it's like a personality thing. And her personality is the kind, it's like hippie-ish.
I think she's pretty bubbly, isn't she? Like, maybe not.
Yeah, she's weird. She'll talk really slow and.
Oh, maybe she's not bubbly
Yeah.
then. I was thinking she was bubbly. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, she's probably running on a similar platform that she did then. I mean, she's known because of the last time. I don't think she's known for anything else. Maybe her book or something. But I guess we never confirmed the Republican side. Obviously Trump, and we all know Ron DeSantis. And then you mentioned Vivek, Rash. I can't even say his last name. Vivek, he's American and from India descent. So he's an entrepreneur here in America, and is self-funded, kind of like Trump is or was and is. So he's, American first kind of guy, just like all Republicans. But I've seen him a lot on TikTok, and he's apparently polling at least 1% or close to 1%. So he should be on the debate stage, which will be nice.
Yeah, he's interesting. Again, all basically had the same views. It seems like he's interesting though, because he's a good speaker, and he talks fast. And I always think that talking fast actually helps you look smarter in general.
More words per minute.
More words per minute can get across more information. So I think that's his whole strategy a lot of the time, or that's just his personality maybe. But yeah, he's a pharmaceutical company, either CEO or founder. I don't know.
Very rich.
Yeah, very rich. I'm a little bit skeptical of his run, whether it's actually genuinely running for president or genuinely building the brand. I'm
going to run for president and release a new company or announce a new company.
I just imagine he has another. I think he has another company that's like more brand centered. Obviously, your personal brand doesn't matter in pharmaceuticals at all. What matters is your drug, how well it works.
Yeah.
But I think he has something else going on as well. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to see, maybe step away and then just become a media personality like a lot of politicians end up doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I tend to agree with a lot of what he says as a libertarian. So I think there's a little bit of merit there as far as like a potential decent candidate. And then obviously we know Trump. I'm sure his big push will being not impeach. What's the he's gonna set himself free from all the what's that called? Pardon. He's gonna pardon himself, of course, once he becomes president. Because it seems like they're trying to put everything under the sun on him.
I mean, they legitimately have stuff on him with the documents. So, I mean, there's a very real shot that he is sworn in, and the first thing he does is pardon himself and gets released from prison. Like, that's a legit chance, because he was caught on tape, like showing off the things, and then he lied about it later, and that was, I don't know if that was in court, so where it mattered or not that he lied, but either way, he was showing confidential, important documents to just a bunch of people. Because his personality is like, he has to feel cool, and like he had the documents, and so he's like showing it off. Like,
yeah. I will say it's, from my understanding, I don't actually have any type of clearance or anything, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's very clear that it says secret or top secret on pretty much each page. So at least that's how it is in the movies. So I don't think it's too far off.
I'm pretty sure in the recording he literally says, "Oh, these are top secret."
I think the main thing that most people are upset about is it's not even playing field as far as these laws. I mean, Hillary Clinton had top or classified information on a private email server, which is a big no-no. Mm-hmm. Nothing really happened to that. Joe Biden had things in his car and his garage. I guess you could make the effort or the point that he wasn't showing it off. But breaking the law is breaking the law, whether you're showing it off or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most people are upset about. I don't, at least on common sense people, I don't think that they would be like, let him go. He's perfectly fine. I think most common sense people are saying, okay, all these other people did this too. If you're going to take him down, take them down too.
Yeah.
But that won't happen.
If anything, I guess one thing that could be learned from this is that we probably just have way too many classified documents or documents labeled as classified. Like, why does everyone have all these classified documents, and why are there so many of them?
Yeah.
And why are they documents anyways?
My understanding is the government just likes to classify things. It might not necessarily warrant a classification, but the base classification, I mean, there's a base classification for you're American. You have a certain level of clearance for being American. And then the next level up from that is maybe proprietary information for certain companies. And then above that is a secret, and then top secret, and then ultra secret. I don't even know what they're called. I'm sure there's a name for it, but I'm not familiar with it. And apparently just getting things to secret is it probably should be. There you go. It's secret. And then it makes it difficult for third parties to inspect documents that they need. Oh, well, sorry, you got to have a classification.
Yeah.
And that is a bunch of money. It's $15,000 or something like that to get a clearance.
Really?
Yeah, really? You have to be sponsored by a company. You can't just hey, I'm going to get my clearance. Here's $15,000. So you got to be sponsored by a company, and it has to be it has to be legitimate. It can't just be, hey, I'm at McDonald's and I really want to sponsor my manager to get a top secret clearance. It has to be, it has to make sense. So
yeah.
I know I went off on a big tangent there, but it's if one's going to get charged, they all need to get charged. If he's going to get charged, or if none of them are going to get charged, then maybe we should put our foot down and say, okay, this is it. Next time, next person that does it, you're going to jail. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I know if I was to do it, I would get in super big trouble.
Yeah, if normal us peons did it, then we'd be.
I mean, look at Snowden.
Yeah,
dude's running for his life all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what ends up happening to him, but it doesn't seem good. And then that leaves the last person, who's Ron DeSantis, also running in the Trump lane, but trying to be the, I guess, normal person version of Trump, if that's the thing, I guess.
I say I'm a lot. I'm sorry, guys. I should do better. But he is interesting. I think he did a lot of good work as governor. He definitely had a lot of roasty moments that go viral for Republicans. Owned moments, I guess, owning the libs. So, and I think he's very much in touch with a lot of people in the fact of hey, he talked about libs of TikTok. He's just like me. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how kind of I think. But he's definitely fallen off a bunch recently since the Twitter debacle where he couldn't go live properly and all that stuff. I haven't heard anything from him.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much either. But I guess I really haven't heard much from any of the candidates besides RFK since then. I think he's still polling pretty high next to Trump. And he always polls better than Trump in a DeSantis versus Biden or Trump versus Biden poll. But he never polls better than Trump in a Trump versus DeSantis poll so far.
Which is exactly what they want.
Yes, it is exactly what they want. That's why Trump is the chosen child for if you're a Democrat.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we want to get into a little bit of predictions. So I guess on the Democratic side, or we can talk more about RFK stuff. I know you have a lot of information on him. Is there any other big, before we get into predictions, are there any big things that RFK talks about that are kind of maybe scandalous, or Republicans really like and Democrats really hate? Or I guess I can start, or you can start. Don't matter.
You start real quick, and then
So the big thing was about assault weapons ban. He wanted to do an assault weapons ban. He said, if Congress will pass assault weapons ban, I will sign it. So that's not really good. That's not going to get there's always second A people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the worst person in the world. If you support Second Amendments and the other side doesn't, they're probably going to vote for you. They're, a lot of gun owners, at least the very hardcore gun owners, are very, very on board with supporting Second Amendment stuff. They're single identity? No, single issue voters. Sorry, that's what I would call a lot of hardcore Second Amendment people. So that will definitely hurt RFK in that.
Yeah. I mean, my big issue with RFK is the pharmacy stuff and the vaccine stuff that he talks about all the time. Like it's not really a big part of his platform, I guess, but a part of his platform that stems from this could actually be incredibly damaging to sort of biomedical innovation in my mind. But he's out there, talking about how no scientist will debate him. I would personally offer to debate him, and I think I'd win. There's a lot of scientists a lot smarter than me, but I think I'm a little bit better of a talker than most scientists. And for some reason, a weird thing about debates is people just basically like whoever's a bit more attacking, and a lot of scientists tend to be pretty passive. And he's a lawyer. I mean, he's a trained lawyer. That's where you got to like learn about some of his stuff. This guy talks about pharmaceutical companies talking their books all the time. That's his thing. It's like, okay, well, pharmaceutical companies and scientists are corrupt because they receive funding from pharmaceutical companies, which is actually very rare. Would love to receive money from pharmaceutical company. Would help a lot with the research, but that's very rare, and you don't even know the type of conflict of interest stuff I even have to do as a grad student. It's ridiculous. I can't even make money doing Uber on the side without having to fill out a bunch of forms and then probably getting potentially kicked out of grad school for doing Uber. So let alone pharmaceutical company conflict of interest stuff aside. But his big thing is he's a lawyer, and if you pay attention to his beliefs, he just so happens to fall on every single weird health conspiracy there is, whether it's vaccines, whether it's pharmaceuticals in general, whether it's climate causing health issues, whether it's pollution causing health issues, these like systemic racism health issues. He just so happens to believe all these conspiracies from both the right and the left wing. Well, why? Why does he believe that? Because he's a freaking lawyer who represents them. And he sues big companies and then represents the people in those big companies and claims wins because big companies will just pay off, spurious correlations that those sort of things tend to have. And with the vaccine stuff, you can never prove that X caused Y 15 years later. It's ridiculous. There's so many different things that are different or we see throughout those years that could be causing why, such as your genes, most likely. But that's his big thing. He represents people who have spurious correlation claims to whatever health issues, saying, okay, like the best example is probably the pollution. So someone lives in an area where there's, a chemical plant or something, and similar, a long time ago, I should take back a little bit. Obviously, pharmaceuticals and vaccines and companies polluting the earth can cause issues in some people, and a lot of times it's shown. The things that are shown to cause issues are pulled back. That happens all the time. The most conservative industry in the entire world is the FDA. It is just so freaking slow, and it's so much slower than it used to be. Because it's over the top safe. And now with that said, you talked about say he's suing a company for some potential pollutant because someone got cancer 60 years later. It's like he's essentially one of those guys on those commercials. It's like, have you a loved one ever gotten diagnosed with mesothelioma? Well, you should call this number and you can potentially, that's what he represents. He does that. So that's why he believes all these certain things that he says. And he always talks about how there's been no placebo-controlled safety trial with any of the vaccines that are what is it? It's not, they're not mandated, but they're kind of mandated in a way if you want to go to public school, I guess. I guess they're called the suggested vaccine schedule. All those, he says, not placebo-controlled trial, and he won a lawsuit because he claimed this, and no one could ever show that this was true. Well, he's right. He's right because his words are conniving in the lawsuit. The specifics of his wording is there's no saline placebo-controlled trial versus each of these drugs. If you're doing a controlled trial, how do you do a control? So a vaccine, you have, all these different things in it, and then you have the antigen, the thing that stimulates an immune response. You have the immune response. So naturally, what is the control going to be? Is it going to be water, or is it going to be the thing with the chemicals without the antigen? It's always going to be the chemicals without the antigen. That's the proper control. That's the proper placebo, because you want to see if it's actually working or if it's the chemicals working. But then, so that's how all those things are safety studied. But people aren't aware of that. And so then, if someone does bring forth this argument, says this, then he always says, well, we need to find out if the chemicals are bad for you. Well, that's true. We should probably find that out. But we did. We've done it tons and tons of times, to figure out, are the chemicals bad? And the normal FDA process is you would have like a group with saline, a group with vaccine minus antigen, a group with vaccine plus antigen, and I guess that would be the three groups. You would normally have that in a large trial. It's very, very expensive to have extra. It's incredibly expensive to have all these extra groups. But once you have shown and proven that the vehicle, which is the vaccine chemicals, is safe, then you don't have to have that saline group anymore for the future trials, because all you're doing is switching out the antigen for the rest of the trials. So it has been tested tons of times. And that's why, as we have newer vaccines, none of the newer vaccines have been tested as a saline. They just have the chemical minus antigen, the normal makeup. So he never talks about that, but he always obfuscates around these issues.
So he's right, but he's not. He's right, but he's not necessarily right that it doesn't work.
Yes, he's right. He's right in lawyer speak. What everyone thinks is, oh my God, these have never been safety tested. Because that's what he makes it sound like. But when you dig into the actual details of what he's talking about, it have been safety tested, every single freaking one, and they're always constantly retested. I don't know where this weird idea that vaccines are just a corrupt industry. They're like the least money-making drug ever. If I'm a drug company, I'm never going to make a one-time shot that someone gets once in their freaking life. That's a terrible business deal. I'd much rather make the long-term drugs.
Yeah, it's like engineering. Hey, I designed something too good. Now it never breaks, and now I can't sell parts.
Yeah. So obviously, that's not the idea of the pharmaceutical industry. They want to make whatever works. But his whole accusations that the vaccine industry is some, corrupt, super corrupt industry is just crazy, because the FDA is like overly conservative. It is the most conservative industry in the nation. I don't think they're anything like, when I say conservative, I don't mean politically conservative. It's definitely not politically conservative at all. But when I mean like
safe,
holding things up for years and years and years.
Time doesn't really matter to them. They would rather be safe, kind of thing.
Yes. I forget what the difference is between a type 1 and type 2 error, but let's just call the type 1 error is you want to avoid accidental deaths. But in that time, because you avoid those accidental deaths, you cause deaths by holding up potential life-saving drugs. They prefer that error over causing accidental deaths to try to avoid, potential cancer deaths, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does for sure. I'm sure he's for animal trials as well. I mean, I don't know if I've heard
any... you can't do anything in the FDA without a preclinical animal trial, and then you move into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, everything, except whenever you have established that the original safety or I guess
In humans.
in humans, you've established safety, then you can do the vehicle minus antigen, or in some very rare cases where the drug or the surgery, like a placebo, is not safe or extremely painful. Like you don't really do sham. We don't often do sham surgeries where you like open up someone and don't fix them. That would be unethical. But there's also drugs that are injected into the eye. You don't want to have a freaking healthy volunteer group to do that, to be injected in the eye normally. But they had to the first time. So there's one or two drugs being tested, or maybe I've already gone past, that are like a virus, adenovirus, like a gene. I don't know exactly what they do. They probably knock down transcription of a gene or overexpress a gene, I guess. But either way, what's important is they're injected into the eye and affect some eye process. Normally, phase 1, you do a healthy volunteers to make sure that the drug is safe. Well, they had to do it the first time in healthy volunteers, but now any other drug that's made on that platform doesn't have to do healthy volunteers. They can all be sick. Because what healthy volunteer wants to get freaking injected in the eye?
Yeah, I mean, that's unless you're paying me $5 million the rest of my life,
yeah,
maybe, but only inject it in one eye. Inject it in my left. I'm right eye dominant, so.
I mean, that's my one big thing with RFK is I don't know if he doesn't understand, but I have a feeling it's a little bit more Machiavellian than that. Maybe he believes his own lies after representing people for years and years, but I think he makes his bag representing people who have spurious correlation to some health outcome that they think was caused by vaccine pollution, whatever. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Every single thing that you do has some risk. It's just what is that? The risk is extremely minimal.
Yeah.
How much?
I mean, you take a risk every day you get in your car. Who knows your brakes might not work, or somebody cut them. It was me. For the record, that was a joke. Anyone, FBI, if you're watching. So, out of the candidates that have been announced, so the six that we talked about, I'm sure there's some that wear boots on their heads and stuff that are kind of a little crazy from separate parties. But out of the main ones, what's your predictions for the Democratic Party and Republican Party? We'll start with Democrats.
I think Joe Biden drops out and Gavin Newsom runs and gets the Democratic nomination. What about you?
If I was going to say Joe Biden was going to drop out and somebody's going to run, it would be Beto O'Rourke. He can't win anything. So perfect guy to run. I don't really know. If Joe Biden drops, I got to think of some career politician. Who's that? Schiff? Andy Schiff? Or Schrift?
Peter, or not? Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff? Yeah, that guy. That's who I'm going for. If he
awful.
Yeah. Well, he's perfect. He's corrupt. He's perfect. He loves China.
Does Kamala run if Biden drops? Or is she just too unpopular now?
She might run, but I don't think she would make it very far.
Yeah.
Do you want to give your ultimate? Yeah, your ultimate one that we talked about before?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Go ahead.
The dark horse, Michelle Obama. Like, she just comes out of nowhere and dominates the Democratic Party, gets the nomination.
You think she can win?
That's my dark horse one. Yeah, I think if she ran, she'd win.
Even against Ron DeSantis?
Yeah. I do.
I think the Republican candidates, that the two favorites, I guess, or the two leaders as far as Trump and Ron DeSantis, I think they're too polarizing. That's one thing that RFK has going for him, is he's in the middle. So he can get people on both sides. The people on the left are never going to vote for Trump. And a very few of those people wouldn't vote for Ron DeSantis, but not very many.
Yeah.
But I think one thing about the presidential elections that we forget is how wide that middle is for people. It's called radical for a reason. People are not on the ends. There's less people on the ends than people think.
Yeah.
It's it's called the majority for a reason, and that's in the middle of the scale. So I don't know.
Whoever
I
can
think
pick
that's
off
why.
those.
Now, as far as like history goes, in the last since the 80s, so what is that, last 50 years, we've pretty much been rotating presidential parties. There's been most Democrats get elected for 2 cycles, and then a lot of Republicans are 2 cycle or 1 cycle, and there was Reagan and then Bush. There was 3 cycles there, 3 election cycles that were Republican. But other than that, it was pretty much alternating between 8 and 4 years. So if history proves it, a Democrat will run again or win again, and then we'll switch next cycle.
Okay.
So,
but normally the incumbent is always favored, but I don't know about in the case of Joe Biden, just because he's so old and fragile. So I think he's going to drop out, and then I guess
I think they know he's going to drop out too.
Yeah,
now. I think they know now.
Yeah,
because there's the way that they're pushing everything through him. Joe Biden did this. Joe Biden did this. Joe Biden did this. This is not our party. This is Joe Biden. He's doing all the string pulling, and he's the bad guy. And then they put him away in the woodworks when the election cycle comes up. And well, Joe Biden was it. Joe Biden did it. We vote for Democrats. So that's what I think is going to happen.
So what do you think happens to RFK then?
I don't know. I think he has a real shot. I think he can win.
I think as soon as people start to see more of his views, like he actually is. I just crapped on his vaccine stuff for a long time, but he actually is very likable when you listen to him. Like I think his terrible sounding voice actually is a huge benefit to him. Makes him sound like a nice grandpa, and he's actually pretty. He's a good talker. He's very likable. He seems like he actually cares about things. But I do think when people actually get down to see his views, they will be surprised and shocked. I mean, the guy holds very, very radical, like left-wing views on like a UBI for homeless people,
universal base income.
Yeah. He actually just tweeted something about sending drug addicts to like outdoor organic farms or something. It was very strange. Very strange.
That is weird.
He also is very radical on the climate and
like AOC radical or Greta Thunberg radical.
Like
we have 3 years or something.
Yeah, he did say in the Joe Rogan podcast though that he, I think he has toned his views down a little bit as he's running. He did say that he believes in a free market solution to climate change, but his free market solution that he kind of talked about was all like majorly subsidizing and phasing out. Majorly subsidizing green energy and phasing out oil. And also he's very anti-nuclear, and wants to nationalize the pharmaceutical industry.
Under the government, right?
Under the government, yeah.
Yeah. I think he has a shot to win. I think as president, you have to, if you want to win, you have to tone down a lot of your more radical thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you have to win over the people in the middle. If you're only getting Democrats, you're not going to win. If you're only getting Republicans, you're not going to win. On the Republican side, what do you think? What's your prediction? You think Trump, DeSantis, Vivek? You think Jeb Bush comes in and sweeps?
I think here's my wild card prediction, not for who's going to win, but for what's going to happen to the primaries. There's going to be like 15 more people that announce that they're going to run, because now with social media, like a lot of a presidential primary is just a brand building exercise. Like, what better way to get a lot of people to know your name, find out. I joked
about it about 5 years ago in our group chat. I was like, I'm going to run for president, and then I was like, oh wait, I forgot you have to be 35.
35, yeah. Maybe. And so in a few years, when we're 35, one of us will run.
And it's cheap.
It's like in the podcast.
It's like $5 or $10 grand, isn't it? It's pretty cheap.
That's great. That's a great deal. That's
I don't
wonderful advertising.
I don't think it's all that expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the actual running a campaign is very expensive.
Yeah. But I
Okay,
think
so anyways, continue with your prediction.
I think a lot of people are going to run in the Republican Party, and I think a lot of random people, a lot of them we won't even know their names at all. I actually think we missed quite a few people that are barely pulling anything that are also running, like Chris Christie, and
Oh yeah,
there's also random small guys running. I think that's what's going to happen. But then when it comes to who's going to actually win, I hate to say it for myself, is I think Trump will win the Republican primary, but hopefully DeSantis can beat him out. But I also think that would just cause this. I guess my hot take is that happens and Trump runs third party, which isn't really that hot of a take. But the hotter part is that RFK Jr. is his vice president pick.
Yeah, I think that's pretty crazy.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, I think he would run. I think he would run third party, and I think it'd be very interesting to see. Actually, I wonder what like. I wish we could have a realistic simulation, unbiased, or go into the multiverse and see when it actually happens that Trump goes third party and sees like actually how the election would go. Because when was the last time a major person ran third party? I think it was during Bill Clinton. It was like the big,
or whatever his name was.
the millionaire, whatever, very well spoken.
Ross Perot.
He ran third party, I think, during Bill Clinton's era, and Republicans always said, "Oh, he took away our presidential election. Bush was going to win again," but he, yeah.
Got
so I think that was like
got almost 20% of the popular vote. So yeah, I mean that's what's going to happen. I mean, I guess if you're like a Democrat strategist, you really want to prop DeSantis up right now. You really, really want to prop DeSantis up because you get DeSantis to win that primary, and Trump is going to run third party and split the vote completely. Because yes, a lot of times third parties, you said third party might be interesting, but I think in the case of Trump running as a third party, it's not interesting because no Democrats like Trump. He does not appeal to people in the middle very, very well at all. He did appeal to Hispanic voters, but I think DeSantis appeals just as much to them. So, or to the ones that like Trump, I guess. And I think that that vote just gets completely split, and it's an easy win for Gavin Newsom, who I think is going to be running.
Yeah. So, my take was, or my thought was, it would just be interesting to see. I don't want it to happen. I mean, as long as it's, I guess, as long as it's not Joe Biden again, because I just don't think he's healthy, regardless of his policies. Like, it's not good. He's not coherent. He can't speak. He can't have a rational thought. And it's just not good for our country to have somebody like that in charge. So
that reminds me, I do like RFK's proposal on how all presidential candidates should have to pass like this mental and like a pretty easy physical test. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess there's a financial thing involved with it as well. So my thought was it might eliminate people, but education's free and it's available to all. So
oh no, he's talking about like running for president. If you run for president, you have to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking it might not be fair to people. It's like like back in it was a Jim Crow era. They had literacy tests, and black people were not allowed to go to school, and so that doesn't make it fair. So that's kind of like my thought process behind it. But education is free to everybody, low income, high income. So that's kind of like my thought. But if education's free to everybody and available, then you should be able to pass some type of Like I said,
Most
if some groups were eliminated, like if they said illegal immigrants, I guess an illegal immigrant can't run for president anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Never mind.
immigrants can't run for president, but that's also another kind of interesting issue. Should people who have lived here for like 30 plus years be able to run for president? Because a lot of the most successful people in the U.S., if you take Elon Musk is actually the best example. I'm not necessarily saying I want Elon Musk to run for president, but he can't. Why? He's lived here for basically forever, his whole life almost. It's a weird thing, and there's a lot of immigrants who are way more pro America than the average American is, who've lived here since they were kids basically, and can't run for president, which I think is a little bit weird.
I was gonna say, as it would be called, nationalized citizens or immigrants. Citizenized.
You have to be born.
Well, I was gonna say for like secret clearances and stuff.
Oh, they must, because Elon definitely has clearances with SpaceX. Surely.
I'll look it up if you want to give some more predictions. Or where'd my mouse go? Shoot, there we go.
What were we predicting just a second ago?
Non-U.S. citizens do not qualify for security clearance. However, if a non-U.S. citizen requires U.S. classified information and meets the requirements of 32 Code of Federal Regulations, a limited access can be granted. So it just says non-U.S. citizens. So if you get your American citizenship, pass the test and everything, you might even have to reject your previous citizenships. Maybe, I'm not for sure how that works, but apparently you can get a security clearance if you're an immigrant and are nationalized, is what I was calling it. I don't think that's right. Get your citizenship. Naturalized. Okay. You get your citizenship. So that was my big thing of like, well, can you get a security clearance? Because if you can't get a security clearance, you shouldn't be able to handle top secret documents as president.
Yeah.
So that kind of. So I don't know, but like, what's the? Okay, well, you have to be here for 25 years. Always, by the time he gets elected, it's 24 and a half. We can't. I don't know. That's kind of me playing devil's advocate of who determines how long. Like,
yeah, I think it just needs to be a really long time, like to where you essentially are.
It's such a long con; it's not worth it.
Yeah, I just think it's a really weird policy to me, especially if you consider when we're writing the Constitution, like almost everyone was an immigrant back then. Within a generation or two. So it is very strange that it was written in like that.
Well, as an immigrant, you can't, but your son or daughter can.
Yes.
So at that point, is it really all that much different?
Well, yeah,
I guess you're raised in America.
I wouldn't wish my kids to run for office, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a strange thing.
Yeah.
And I know I think it'll eventually come up for debate because, if you look around, a lot of the very successful people, like uber successful people, tend to be immigrants or within at least one generation of an immigrant. Although in that case, they can run. But just for example, like many of the tech CEOs are immigrants or children of immigrants. Just shows that, and some of them are pretty pro-America. I wouldn't say all of them, but that's a very meritocratic thing, and we can't have. I would prefer in politics the best is running always, and I don't think we ever really have the best. It's usually the most sociopathic, the ones who don't care about
most narcissistic,
sociopathic. You got to be really uncaring about your family life to run for president, like, because they're going to get destroyed. Like
they're going to know everything. Yeah.
They're going to know everything. And yeah, I think that we just don't really we don't incentivize the best. Number one, maybe for a good reason. They know it's not great to run, but number two, we may probably miss out on quite a big net of people who could be really good.
I guess if the checks and balances really work, does it matter who's president? Like, you know?
That's a great question. I don't think it does, actually. That's another sort of unpopular opinion.
That they don't actually work?
That it's just
or that it's actually truly balanced.
President's just a face.
That's how it was originally intended, I think, but it hasn't turned out that way. I mean,
no, they have a lot of power. They have a lot of power, but I think we put a lot of extra power that doesn't actually exist in our minds on them. I think actually the president's most powerful influence, I guess, or abilities is in foreign policy. It seems like they can direct that the most. And then their second most is, generally at a root level, how likable are they? Like, is the country getting along? That's not really a policy thing at all. That's just kind of a personality thing.
Yeah, but also policy matters because it can divide people.
Policy matters, but I guess what I'm saying is a lot of times policy is just not run by the president. They push forward policy for popularity reasons, but checks and balances keeps everything in check.
So do you have any more hot takes you want to talk about, or anything that we've talked about that you want to clarify or expound on?
No. I'll debate you, RFK Jr. We'll get a lot of notoriety on the podcast for that.
Yeah, you have to do it on Simply Technical.
Yeah, come to Simply Technical. I'll debate you.
We should get a RFK Jr. impersonator on here. Okay, well, I don't have anything either. Kind of a little spicy episode, so.
Yeah.
But this has been Simply Technical. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.